Hello again, and for today, I'm going to be diving into something that has been bugging me when it comes to the meme of the boomer. And while it's not a new political term, I do want to establish a term for my channel so that I can refer to boomers that are left-wing as opposed to your average boomer who statistically tends to be conservative or right-leaning. And so we need to define the differences between the boomer and the resistard. Now, what is a resistard? It's very simple. It's a left-wing boomer. The reason why I use the term resistard is specifically because of the schism between young left-wing people and older left-wing people. I feel that resistard is such an appropriate definition for a left-wing boomer because these are the people who vote blue no matter who, even if it's a fucking senile old guy that literally cannot form proper sentences. Oh my God. It's just so beautiful to watch the Democratic Party burn. And I think I'll cover it next week with a couple more election results rolling in as to the state of the Democratic Party and how I was right in that old video that I did. But let's continue with this commentary. So when I refer to the boomer politically, I am referring to a boomer / Gen X aged right-wing person. They are not right-wing in the sense of any social conservative anymore. I think what would define a boomer politically in the right-wing sphere is a normie-con or a neocon. That is the level of right-wingness that the typical conservative boomer tends to occupy. You don't see a lot of Jared Taylors running around the world, if you catch my drift. But with these just specific differences, there is not much that separates them generationally. There's not a lot that separates them in a more ideological sense. You know, if neocon and neoliberals are essentially two sides of the same coin, then you're not going to see a lot of differences between the boomer and the resistard. But for the purposes of defining these differences, it's very important to understand that there are differences. I remember watching some Razor Fist videos back in the day, and he would refer to resistards as just boomers. It's like, no, boomers are in the right wing. They are a predominant chunk of the audience of the merchant right. They are a predominant chunk of the Fox News viewing audience. And you can't just disregard that because it doesn't fit your ideological worldview. You know, you have to understand that the boomer is mainly a right-wing problem. You know, the young people have eschewed the resistard as some kind of low-information voter. Much like the actual low-information voters. But the big difference is that these low-information voters are not of one particular race and ethnicity. These are the mainstream sections of the left wing. These are your neoliberals. These are your blue dog Democrats. These are the people that voted both Barack Obama and Bill Clinton into the White House. These are not the Bernie Sanders loving crowd, even though I do know my fair share of boomer-aged progressives. There are simply not enough of those to justify their own definition. They are just part of the larger progressive sect of the left. But the resistard is the giant voting bloc that has been electing Joe Biden, Aryan Joe, into the nomination slot for the Democratic Party for the general election coming up in November. And oh my fucking goodness, these people really are boomers in their mindset, in the sense that not only do they reject any sense of socialism. I mean, you saw it before Chris Matthews got fired, how much he was crowing on MSNBC about being sent into a gulag or into an execution stand in the middle of Central Park or whatever he said. These resist-hards have essentially created the space required to bring progressive-minded candidates into the limelight as a result of their failures, as a result of their desire to elect people who essentially are do-nothings. And, they freaked out so hard that the entire Democratic Party has now coalesced around the most senile candidate I think we have ever seen in the modern political sphere. This man is not electable, and yet because the resist-hards essentially reject Bernie Sanders, reject Elizabeth Warren, even rejecting Tulsi Gabbard, who, for my money right now, she is the most sane candidate running, even though I don't agree with a lot of what she says in regards to the more conservative-leaning positions. She is miles ahead of Bernie Sanders on a lot of what he believes, and she is also miles ahead of Joe Biden. But Bernie Sanders, again, is still slightly better than Joe Biden when it comes to just the two of them. But the issue is that the reason why someone like Tulsi Gabbard did not get picked to be the Democratic frontrunner when she had all of the social points that she needed to get into the nomination slot is very simple. It is because she essentially disagrees with the narrative surrounding the Middle East and the forever wars and picking who are the bad guys, like Bashar al-Assad. And because she doesn't view Bashar al-Assad as the world's most evil man, much like the neocons and neoliberals do, she essentially got herself fucked over. And these resist-hard people are so low information that they don't even investigate why the media and why the political establishment really view Bashar al-Assad as the world's most evil man right now. Because, obviously Saddam Hussein is dead, Gaddafi's dead. He clearly was the next in line to be the establishment boogeyman to start another forever war. And as a result, we see that these resist-hards, much like the boomers on the right, are just low information voters. These are people who also believe in single issue voting, and I think I'll get around to that. I think I'll write that down in my notes of subjects to go over. But low information voting is essentially not good for the dialectic, for the discussion, for the debate. We cannot have single issue voters running around determining the fate of nations, because these are the people who, again, don't pay attention, and yet because their precious abortion is at risk, because their precious social issues are at risk, they will vote against their own self-interest. Because just because that one person agrees with you on that one thing does not make them the candidate for you. And boomers, on the whole, do not understand this, because they've been low information voters. They've been single issue voters for a majority of their lives. And if there was anything that I discovered in my Why I Hate Boomers commentary, it is simply the fact that boomers are unwilling to change their mind. They are unwilling to adapt to the world around them. They lack the ability to essentially understand that things have changed and that the things that used to work no longer work. And again, the boomers and the resist-hards have created this world, created the problems that exist in it, and it is essentially their fault. But you'll never hear them admit it. So I'm going to start to wrap this up, because I think I've been rambling just a little bit too much. But essentially, the difference between the boomer and the resist-hard is simply ideological. The boomer is right-wing, statistically on the whole, and the resistard is the left-wing boomer, the other half of the statistical pie piece. And, with all that said, I feel that hopefully once the boomers actually retire, we will see less of this. We will see more of an intelligent dialectic. We will see more reasonable discussion. I feel that because boomers are not getting their way anymore, that essentially this is birthing a lot of problems in society. They are not adapting successfully from, end of their career into retirement. And essentially as a result, they have just fucked the world around us. Again, you can go to my Why I Hate Boomers commentary for all of my reasons as to why the boomers have been a disaster for the human race. The boomer generation and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. But in conclusion, to the boomers, to the resistards, if you continue to poison the discussion surrounding issues that need to be resolved with your low information, single issue voting brains, well, you better tread lightly, because there are more young people getting politically involved every single day, and they do not have your interests in mind.